Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Greg Glynn.
Thanks, and welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. In this episode, we're talking about athlete branding and investing. We're joined by Rob Connolly, a seasoned entrepreneur and the dynamic co-founder and CEO of Finlete, a pioneering sports tech company based in San Diego, California. Very impressive track record of founding and scaling startups. He has not only led 2 companies to successful exits, but has also cemented his reputation as a visionary leader in the sports technology arena. He's going to talk to us today about Finlete. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Wow, Greg, what an intro. Thank you. That's so kind. That's very nice of you. Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be cool because I think this is going to open up a lot of eyeballs related to name, image, and likeness, related to athletes wanting to go to the next level, play professionally, and how Finlete is actually helping them get that start and then go on and be able to have the resources, including the funds, to be able to have the support of some of their biggest fans. So talk to me about how Finlete works.
Yeah, great. Again, thank you for the time. Finlete is a platform that allows fans to directly invest in athletes through Finlete, so through our company. And how this works is we help athletes raise capital in a way where they're giving up a percentage of their future earnings as a professional in their sport. So it's really relevant in minor league baseball, where you have players that are coming up in single A or rookie ball that make very little, that have huge projections that can potentially make millions and millions of dollars in their career. We're able to help them raise capital today to focus on their sport year round. And on the backside, that if they do make it to the big leagues, they will owe a percentage of their future earnings to the fans that invested in them at an early stage.
It's such a cool concept to be able to give fans that opportunity. Talk to me about the ability for accredited and non-accredited investors and kind of what that means, and maybe give us an example of one of the athletes that you've worked with.
Yeah, so we had to go through a pretty extensive process with our legal team, our securities legal team in New York, but we were able to obtain SEC certification to allow us to accept investments from non-accredited investors who want to invest in these athletes through Finlete. And so how that works is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be accredited. You can be you can make, minimum wage at McDonald's, and you could still invest in an athlete through Finlete. You don't have to be accredited like a hedge fund would be if you were to invest in that group.
That's really remarkable. So when it comes to this, let's give an example of maybe a client that you're working with that has been successful, or is an example of how people could invest.
Yeah, so we are working with a prospect named Ashedri Vargas from the Texas Rangers. Ashedri Vargas signed for $10,000 as a 16-year-old from the Dominican Republic. And his first 2 years in the Texas Rangers organization, he rose from being a prospect that was wildly overlooked to becoming one of the top prospects in the Texas Rangers organization. So we were able to get a hold of Ashedri and his family when he was 18 and rising through the ranks, and provided them with an opportunity to create some security for himself and his family, while also being able to focus on baseball year round. And then giving fans of baseball or alternative investors the ability to support Ashedri through our platform.
So for an athlete that might be hearing this right now, what does it take to get started? Do they invest with you? How does that relationship start and work?
So for the athlete perspective, what we do is we've built an algorithm that allows us to, project a potential future earnings that an athlete could see in their career. And then we're able to work backwards to find an investment amount that would make sense for fans to invest in, that would have a reasonable expectation of potentially seeing a return if that athlete were to go professional and make, professional earnings at the highest level in their sport.
And all of this interaction happens through your website, through an app. Explain that, because I can't imagine an athlete having to report to all these fans that are ready to get their money,
Yeah, no, everything's done through our platform. We simplify everything. We make sure that all the payouts are done through our issuer provider, and everything is seamless. As far as athletes wanting to learn more about potentially being on our site, all you have to do is just go to finlete.com and let us know who you are, and we can put you through our our trajectory and find out what's a good fit, if it's a good fit for us and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you've talked a little bit about baseball. I know that's a big one area of focus for you right now. But we were also talking off air here that the growth of women's sports is a huge opportunity and could be a very good opportunity for someone who wants to support a female athlete. We talked a little bit about women's soccer, women's ice hockey. Talk to me about what you're seeing with women's sports right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we're able to find ways to help these female athletes, fund their dreams and their aspirations of being, going pro at the highest level. I mean, being a girl that have two daughters, I'm always looking for ways to help the ladies out. We really like, a couple sports right off the top. Women's golf is a huge opportunity, we believe. Women's soccer is also another great opportunity. We're in San Diego, so we're seeing firsthand the San Diego Loyal, the women's soccer team here, really just take a hold of the city and get tons of support. And there's lots of different women's sports, basketball and different ways we can work with these athletes. And we're excited to do so. And we can't wait to be able to have our first woman on our platform. We signed our first player, Shuddery, but we are excited to working with, all different types of athletes on our platform.
That's awesome. I love that. So let's talk about an athlete if they were to work with you. And like you said, if the athlete doesn't go pro, then those fans never receive the return, but that's okay because they never also shelled anything out. So it's kind of a fun way to support an athlete based on their aspirations and then see that return. And if they don't, if they take their career in a different direction, there's really no harm, no foul here.
Correct. Yeah. So the athlete only owes us something if they make it to the highest level in their sport. So the WNBA or the NBA or MLB, the major leagues. That's when our future earning contract, kicks in. If the athlete never makes it to that level, they never have to pay that money back. They keep that money. That's theirs to keep. It's their what they receive from us. Actually from the fans, should I say. But that's how that works.
Okay. And so are you then building almost a team of Finlete athletes that then people can then come to your site essentially, right? And then invest in, and that's the model for you?
Yeah. So we want to provide fans the ability to invest in athletes through Finlete. That's really our vision. We think that it's something that can change sports forever. I think that people will look at sports gambling and say, why would I, buy a $25 ticket on a team to win when I can invest in the athlete through Finlete and not only support them, but that's a really exciting play. And it's an actual, stock certificate you receive. It's a legitimate investment. It's not a crypto or NFT or anything crazy like that. Like this is the registered SEC security.
Right. So right now you must be looking to, of course, spread the word. Your target audience is obviously very talented, high-end athletes who have aspirations and the talent to go pro. How are you right now trying to market yourself, to these athletes?
Yeah, and we're just letting them know that we're out here and they have other options, right? Because for the longest time, there's only been one real option for these athletes, which is a private hedge fund that, you know, with the valuations to us seem relatively low. And, you know, by giving these athletes another option, we feel like is a great way to get our name out there. And in baseball, it's exciting for us because, like, 2 years ago, we would be talking to athletes in baseball and nobody ever heard of us. Like they're like, who?
Right.
Finlete?
Yeah.
But now we're like talking to like the top prospect in the Dodgers organization. And he was like, oh yeah, I heard of you. You were working with, you know, a Shettery. Like people are now like learning about this little idea we had here in San Diego 2 years ago. It's kind of coming into fruition with all these little, you know, potential minor league prospects. It's pretty cool.
Wow, that's great. I love hearing that story, especially like you said, with you know, your experience and helping with startups and being able to. I think it's really cool because I saw this coming when I started Pliable, which is to get into athlete branding. And I really feel like what started to happen, it really was with a little bit of fantasy sports, is that people wanted to root for athletes sometimes more than they actually want to root for teams, right? People get
Yeah.
traded, you know, you have that feeling of like, that was my favorite
Mhm.
player, you know, I'm never going to be able to watch him again. So
Yeah.
the idea
Yeah.
is that now you can actually follow and continue to invest, or if you've already invested in the athlete,
Yeah.
be able to continue that human connection, you know, that I
Mhm.
think is so important. And I think that, like you talked about in your gambling example, where that could be a, you know, $25 bet you put on a team, win or
Mm.
lose,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, you're either going to be happy or you're going to be sad, right? And then you're on to the
Yeah.
next thing. You're probably on to your next bet, okay? But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you're investing in an athlete, that athlete can do well one day, not so well another day, and that's
Mhm.
okay because that's the
Yeah.
span of the career, and you've made an investment, a long-term investment, rather than a try to get rich quick kind of bet on one game, you know, one situation.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's what's really unique and awesome about Finlete is that you're a part of a community of investors on our platform supporting this athlete. And that is so cool because nobody knows who a Shettery Vargas is today. Like nobody knows, you know, who's a Shettery Vargas. We know him. A lot of people that know a lot about baseball know about him,
Yeah.
but the average fan doesn't. So we're giving these fans, you know, their ability to be like, you know, Shark Tank early investors in a player like you would invest in a startup and follow along the journey. And could you just imagine like how exciting it would be if all of a sudden we're having a conversation and we get an alert that, you know, such and such player just signed a $300 million contract extension, and we're running to our computer, getting our calculator out, figuring out, you know, oh my gosh, you know, like, oh my, I'm gonna buy a new car tomorrow or whatever, you know, it's crazy. And when you look at the potential for returns, I mean, we're talking about this company that we're competing with, you know, who is this private hedge fund. I know $500,000 is a lot of money, right? But they're going to make $22 million plus off a $500,000 investment in Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, could you imagine if you just would have invested $50 into that opportunity? It would be
Right.
worth thousands of dollars. So it's really exciting to think about the potential returns, the excitement, and riding the roller coaster of what it feels like to be a professional athlete, the wins and
Yeah,
the
the wins, the
losses.
losses, yeah, the ups and
You
downs.
know?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah,
understand. It's like living vicariously through the athlete. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
Let me ask another NIL related question.
Mhm.
Have you started to think about or gotten into the NIL space a little bit related to brand ambassadors or promotion of Finlete to try to get your name out there a little bit more? Is that something you're going to explore?
We've tried. Yeah, that's actually great that you brought that up. If you are a athlete that is looking to help us with promotions, please reach out. We've had us like personally, I'll tell you, we've struggled getting a hold of collegiate athletes and really just getting them to even respond to us through, you know, the normal channels. It's been a challenge, and we look forward to working with you, Greg, on helping us, you know, connect with these athletes because it's something we really are struggling with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I want to help out big time, because I think that we can create a pretty cool partnership here to be able to get this word out. I also look at it from the perspective, if I work with, or another NIL agency works with, an athlete that isn't maybe going to go pro, they
Mhm.
have probably some friends, if they've made it to that level at
Mhm.
D1 college, that if they get the word out, somebody's going to see it and go, wow, hey, I didn't know that that existed. Tell me more about that. And then that athlete becomes an ambassador for you. So rather than them having to trust a website that they come to, they trust the
Yeah.
human that they have a friendship or a relationship with. And that's how I think you're going to turn a lot more athletes into Finletes, quite honestly. So
I can't agree with you more. Yeah, 100% agree.
all right, cool. Well, I think this has been amazing. So let's again recap for people how they can get involved. Do you also have opportunities for maybe large investors? I don't know, right? We talked about kind of the fans, but are there any other ways that people could, who are big time investors and, love working with the money
Mhm.
markets and things like that, and maybe want to dive deep into investing in your company more? I don't know. Is there
Mhm.
another way that they could get involved?
Yeah, I mean, really the best way to get in contact with us is either email, which is rob@finlete.com, or reach out to either one of our social media channels on Instagram, which is @Finlete, or Twitter @Finlete. We're there. We respond to pretty much everybody, and we'd love to just explain to you how we see this world. Because it's the NIL space in sports. It's really a quickly evolving space, and we want to be in the forefront of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Rob. I think this has been very enlightening. I know there's athletes that are listening that are going to say, huh, I think this is a pretty cool concept. And they'll be clicking and going over to finlete.com to learn more. So thanks again for
Yeah.
joining us, and really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having us.
All right. I am Greg Glynn. Glad you could tune in, and stay pliable, my friends.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll. Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast because that's how we roll.